week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few tight ends I would look to start. The first guy is Noah Fant of the Denver Broncos, so I like a lot of Denver Broncos to start this week here. Fant in week 1 versus the New York Giants, 6 catches, 62 yards on 8 targets. And now with Jerry Jeudy out, I think he's going to get more targets and more plays his way as Noah Fant. And here in week 2, he's got another great matchup at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who we saw in week 1, they couldn't stop anyone. And even Pharaoh Brown had a pretty good fantasy day. And he's a recommended pickup on the waiver wire at the tight end position he was this week. But anyway, Noah Fant, I think he can have 80 yards in this game, and I think he could find the end zone. This Jacksonville team, they couldn't stop the Texans, and I don't think they're going to stop the Broncos much. And this Bronco offense looked pretty good versus a mediocre Giant defense, putting up 27 points in the game. And I think they could do similar type of things at Jacksonville. And I'd like Fant this week to have 80 yards, like I mentioned, and find the end zone. The second tight end I would start this week's Rob Gronkowski of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Rob Gronkowski, he came out with a huge week 1 versus the Dallas Cowboys, and he put on a clinic, 8 catches, 90 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Even after taking a year off a few seasons ago, Rob Gronkowski, he's still up there as one of the best tight ends in the league, in my opinion. He still can make plays. He's definitely still a threat in the middle of the field. And with all those good receivers around him, he's going to have a lot of one-on-one coverage, and he's going to find the end zone a lot, in my opinion. And that's what I think he's going to do once again here in week 2 versus the Atlanta Falcons, who gave up a touchdown to Dallas Goddard. And I think Rob Gronkowski in this one will get 50 or 60 yards and find the end zone once again. And pretty much he's a start each and every week, in my opinion. The next tight end I would look to start this week's Dallas Goddard of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Goddard, I just mentioned him scoring a touchdown in week 1, and it was a good week 1 for him as Goddard. 4 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. And that's solid numbers, in my opinion, for tight ends. There's not many great tight ends, like I mentioned. You only got 4 or 5 good ones. Obviously, Kelsey, Darren Waller, Kittle, TJ Hawkinson. So Goddard, he's a solid tight end. Eagles believe in him, obviously. And here in week 2, he's got another good matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers, who I mentioned who gave up a lot of fantasy points to TJ Hawkinson, who found the end zone as well. So right here, him and Hurts got a good rapport, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Goddard find the end zone again with 50 or 60 yards in this game. And I think this game with San Francisco and the Eagles is going to be a shootout. So I like Dallas Goddard a lot. I think he's going to make plays. I think he'll find the end zone. And this week, he's a guy you got to put in your starting lineup. The next tight end's Logan Thomas of the Washington football team. So Logan Thomas was a breakout tight end last season for Washington, and he picked up where he left off last year with a solid game in week 1 versus the Chargers. 3 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. So now Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's going to be out of the lineup 6 to 8 weeks with a bad hip injury. So Heineke's going to be the quarterback here for this Washington football team. And they got a good matchup here in week 2, a Thursday night game versus the New York Giants, a division rival here. So Thomas, I think he could exploit this defense. We saw Noah Fant go for 6 catches and 62 yards versus the Giants. And I think Logan Thomas could put up similar numbers. And he's a big red zone and target threat, so I think he goes for 50 or 60 yards as well and finds the end zone versus the Giants. The Giants, they just don't have the linebackers, in my opinion, to keep up with Logan Thomas. And Heineke's going to use him as a safety blanket as well, in my opinion. And a guy who's going to work the middle of the field is the 6'8 target Thomas. So I like him a lot this week. And he's definitely a tight end to start. In the 5th and final tight end, I look to start this week's Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So Andrews, he didn't look great on that Monday Night Football ball game versus the Vegas Raiders. Very quiet game for him. 3 catches for 20 yards. And I wasn't a big Andrews guy coming into the season. There's going to be a lot of inconsistent games like we saw from him in week 1 versus the Raiders. But here in week 2, Sunday Night Football, it's a big matchup, marquee matchup. Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Ravens, they got to find a way to win this game, and they got to find a way to get over the hump versus the Chiefs. They've had a lot of close games with the Chiefs over the last few years, but they just can't get over the hump and win. And they lost a tough one on Monday night versus the Raiders. So right here, their game of attack, in my opinion, has to be attacking the middle, has to be attacking the linebackers here, is the Baltimore Ravens. And I think Mark Andrews is going to have a good game. We saw Njoku and Austin Hooper for the Cleveland Browns go over 100 yards in that game with 103 yards receiving from their tight ends. And I think Mark Andrews could have a good game, and he's going to get a lot of targets. So just on volume alone, even after a bad week one, I would put Mark Andrews in your lineup. So that's a few tight ends I would look to start here in week 2 of the fantasy football season.